Hey everyone, my name is Joshua Berglan, and today we're going to discuss media literacy in the age of information overload. And as you know, there is a lot of information out there. It's a bit crazy. And it's almost impossible to know what's real, but we're going to get into some tips. And there's a lot of different forms of media literacy that I'm passionate about teaching, but today we're going to talk about this. Media literacy is the ability to assess, analyze, and evaluate media messages. So there's a lot of forms of media: books, print, video, of course, and which video now, I, how do you know what's real? I got some tips for that because there are some ways to find out some of those videos and even audio that is making its way through social media. There's ways to tell if it's real or not, and there's more technologies that are being able to figure out what's AI, what's Photoshop, what's not. But I got to tell you, it's not a perfect science, and even the best of the conspiracy theorists get fooled sometimes. It happens, and it's happening more and more. It's happened to me a few times, and the funniest thing about some of these fake photos and fake videos, the deep fake videos that go around, is sometimes it's like I'll say we'll go with a photograph. Sometimes the altered photograph really didn't even need to be altered because the way it was proved the point, but some people go for the extra emphasis. So, and I'm not going to give examples because it could get inappropriate quickly, and I'm just not going to go there. But there's this. Well, let me get to this. The other things before I get into the tips. It is essential for navigating the vast amount of information available online and making informed decisions. Look, without checking sources, without taking the time to verify that an article is coming from a legitimate source or a photo's real, the information that we can be led to go out and give or spread around, because essentially that's what we do in media, in social media, is that we're regurgitating a lot of information that's being put out by other people. There's very few people putting out original forms of information, and that they've, like, journalism as an art is much different now than it used to be. So it's very hard to know if your source is legitimate or we're just spreading a bunch of fake news. And not to use a term that has been completely overused, or is it underused? Because it's coming from all sides, and it's absolutely the most wild form of gaslighting I've ever seen, which is happening. Media is a gaslighting machine, and we are all guilty because when we share and reshare things and retweet things and repost things that we haven't verified are real, we're part of the psyop. We're part of the fake news. We are not any better. So there's no judgment here at all. Media literacy helps us to understand the purpose of media messages, the techniques used to create them, and the potential impact on us. Now, obviously, again, media has this power to do extraordinary, amazing things. In fact, why I got into media was to be a part of the media and to be part of the change, to be part of what I believe is this: the media as it stands now, the power or the illusion of this, the power lies in the hands of a few. But I think one of the mistakes that was made, maybe it was by design, but I don't know if the powers that be ever thought we would have so many people step up and become independent journalists and independent media organizations. That's the future. The power that lies in the hands of a few is going to be broken and splintered into the hands of millions. Independent media is on the come up, and it's going to be very, very instrumental in building the new world. Now, here's the thing: I personally believe, this is my own belief, that we'll all have to be media organizations in the future. This is why I'm very passionate about teaching media. This is why I'm passionate about teaching the nuances of media or new media, because media as we know it is no longer. It's completely changed, and it's changing, and it's going to change more. But I believe with all my heart that we have a real huge opportunity here. And some people have talked about this for 50 years, that in the future we would all be independent media organizations. And I believe that this is necessary because we're going to need the multiple revenue streams that a media organization and that media knowledge affords us. We're going to need it. The days of just being able to do one job, I believe, are completely done. But again, it's practical because media is turned into multimedia, and new media is multimedia. And what I mean by that is, to be in the new media game, you've got to be doing broadcast, some type of video, some type of audio, written word, and then you have apparel and products and all of these other things, in which, by the way, when you have apparel, you can make content to support that apparel, which supports other things. I mean, like, everything is kind of interconnected. And one of the things that you'll realize, and I'm getting off the subject here, but this is part of media literacy. But if you want to publish a book, well, publishing a book and creating a YouTube channel are virtually the same process. I know it's a little bit different, and I know from experience because, well, I have a best-selling book, and I did it from self-publishing, and the process is the same thing as YouTube channel or a podcast. If you can do a podcast, you can do YouTube. If you can do YouTube, you can do Rumble. If you can do Rumble or YouTube or a podcast, you can do Apple TV, Roku, or Amazon Fire. It's all the same thing. And if you can do that, then you can self-host. So, and I have some self-hosting videos. Actually, one of the things I want to tell you is, on my website, the video platform, where you go to any of the links that are on the website, all you have to do is type in the search bar any word you want, and the videos will pop up. It's kind of amazing. Okay. So, strategies for critical thinking, evaluating online sources, and navigating the vast amount of information available to the public. Critical thinking. You want to question everything. Don't expect information, don't accept information at face value. In fact, I want to say this. If you have if you're following people on social media and they're pretending to do good, they're pretending to be good, those are the ones that you should question twice as much. And listen, and I'm not like saying false prophets. I'm not calling people names. I'm just saying, one of the biggest rude awakenings we got, Jessica and I, when we were working with anti-trafficking organizations, it was realizing that some of those organizations were actually trafficking people. And some of these giant speaking freedom fighter tours, you got to question them just as much. And I'm not politically aligned. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I don't choose a side. That's not my thing at all. You do what you want with that. My belief is you're just choosing a different poison. But that, again, that's another subject. Um, but so the you want to question everything, and again, and you want to be able to ask questions. So if you're following somebody, or you're getting information, or somebody is telling you that they've got information, they have inside information, ask questions. Ask qualifying questions. Ask as many questions as you can get out. And here's why. Because people that are lying don't have a level past the first level of defense. They may have a second level of defense, so they may be able to answer a couple questions, is what I mean by that. But typically, if you want to upset a liar, keep asking questions. I promise you, it'll make their head explode because they don't want to do it. It's kind of like how you always know when someone's not educated in what they're talking about is when they're regurgitating what the news said, when they're just spewing back the headlines to you. What's the point of that? There's no point in that. Like, what, that's just lazy. So why even get into an argument? Why even act like you know what you're talking about if all you have is the headline? So if you want to get into a debate with somebody, one of my favorite things to do when someone calls me an idiot is just challenge them to a public debate, because I won't enter into a conversation with somebody or where I'm willing to say, hey, this is my truth and I'll go up against your truth. I'm not doing that unless if I know I can talk circles around you. And I do that because that's how that's how I argue. That's not like, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And I try to avoid arguments, but I won't even engage into a debate unless if I know that I've got layers of information to support what I'm saying. Because if I don't, if I only have the headline, 9.9 times out of 10, it's not going to go well because I'm going to get exposed as somebody that doesn't have information. So, anyway, okay. You want to consider the source of the information and its biases. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Look who owns the news organization, Sky News. Literally go through and trace who owns these companies. And then if you really want to have fun, look who's on their board, who's their shareholders. Like, that's going to tell you what you need to know. Follow the money, as they say. Look for evidence to support the claims. Look, anything that comes out nowadays, you can be looking at. I'll do the USA Today. USA Today. On USA Today, under politics, you will have one article that says one thing about Trump, and the next will say something completely different, or Biden. Either way, it's a mixed message, and it's like it's designed to create psychological warfare. It's the worst form of narcissistic gaslighting I've ever experienced in my life, and it's happening every time we open our phone and start scrolling. The gaslighting begins. Be aware of your own biases. Okay, woo, this one's good. Okay, so we all have a little bit of a bias. Whether you want to believe it or not, we have a bias. If you're religious, you have a bias. In fact, even within your religion, there's a bias. There's a bias between the branch of your religion. There's a bias of the church you go to. There's a lot of bias. There's a political bias. There's a gender bias. There's a sexuality bias. There's all kinds of bias because whatever box that you want to put yourself in, you're going to have a bias for that box. And that's not a good place to be. That is going to skew your judgment. I know. I lived in it. I was that way. That a bias to everything. Everyone was going to hell. Everyone was this. Everyone was that. That is not. It's not how it works. Okay. Evaluate how to evaluate online sources. You want to check the author's credentials and expertise. That's an easy one. Before you start following people, there's two things that you can do. Actually, I kind of recommend this one. I don't really talk about this much. Look up the names on IMDb and find out who their agent is. I'm not kidding. That's a great one. But checking out their credentials and expertise is big. You want to consider the purpose of the website or article. You want to look for evidence to support claims and avoid logical fallacies. So typically, and here's the thing about finding evidence, and if you're going to go dive in a wormhole, typically one of the best questions you can ask yourself is who funded the research? So when I was making products, and I still do from time to time, but when I was making products for brands and for celebrities, I had skincare and cosmetics and medical devices, and I got to do some really fun projects. But one of the things that we do with making products is that you have to check every little ingredient. You got to check the source of the information. You got to trace it back. And so then when you have studies, like when studies are done, you want to trace who did the study, who funded the study, because all of that can be manipulated. Don't think for a second just because it has an FDA stamp next to it that it's something that you want to use, because that doesn't mean anything. In fact, I would buy a product from QVC or HSN before I would one that had FDA approval on it. And the reason why is because the testing procedure for HSN and QVC is top notch. It's so good. It's so good, and they're a trustworthy group to work with. But you can't always trust a study, and sometimes studies are manipulated. Sometimes that the study that a product is actually borrowing from doesn't really match the ingredients. That they do this with vaccines. There's so many twisted things about it, but you've got to just trace the source. You got to know the questions to ask. And typically, you want to find out who the contract manufacturer is of any product before you buy, because you want to know how they source the ingredients. It's the same thing with media. It's the same thing. Who's funding that paper? Who owns it? Do they have an agenda? That's what you want to. And just because it says independent news doesn't mean it's independent news. Okay, be aware of the date of publication and whether the information is up to date. Yeah, that's a no-brainer, because there's a lot of stuff that gets floated around that's old and they make it look like it's new. That's a problem. But also, here's the other thing too, is that just because it's out of date, sometimes they lie. Like sometimes there's like a 2-week delay in the news that they'll actually give you. They won't give you the real current updates until 2 weeks after the fact. It's kind of crazy, but that's one of the ways it works. Navigating the vast amount of information available to the public. So, this is how you do that. Be selective about the sources you consume. I know this is probably not going to be popular, but Twitter X is one of the best platforms to find truth. It's also a platform to find a lot of bullcrap too. There's probably more truth on Twitter than anywhere else, but even that is not a perfect science at all. You want to use credible and reliable sources, obviously. Look, if they have a large following, it in a lot of engagement, there's a good chance that they're not what you think. I'll just leave it at that. Be aware of echo chambers and filter bubbles. I went over to I don't know what Instagram their I forgot the Twitter ripoff that Facebook has. Anyway, I checked it out. Threads, it's what it's called, I think. It's that's an echo chamber. And the thing about Twitter too is that that can become an echo chamber also. If you start following a lot of the same people, that's going to become an echo chamber quickly. You follow a sports team, that's an echo chamber. It's going to happen. So it's good to get a difference of opinion and just use your spirit to discern what's real and what's not. And you're still not going to get it right. Take breaks from social media and other forms of digital consumption. Okay, hallelujah on this. Put your phone away, go for a walk. I mean, I live in Minnesota and it's freaking cold already, but like go for a walk. Turn it off. My eyes hurt because of the stupid screen. I need to find my glasses. Anyway, take a break. Take a week break. You're gonna be forgiven. I promise. Like no one's gonna be mad at you, and it's amazing because it's easy to get sucked in to what the screen is telling you, and it's easy to get obsessed. I know from experience because I do it, and I'm on a computer all day, so it's really hard not to check social media, but it is worth doing. Okay, so here's some additional tips. Be skeptical of headlines and clickbait. Prime example, usually the headline doesn't match what's in the actual text. You even using AI to help write your headlines, it is going to be far different than what's actually in the text. That you got to keep that in mind. Do your own research before sharing information. Find other sources. You don't need to be first in the news feed. That's what everyone else does. You don't need to do that. It's better to be right. Be aware of your own biases and try to be open minded. Be respectful of others, even when you disagree with them. Media literacy is an essential school. Sorry. Media literacy is an essential skill for everyone in the digital age. By following these strategies, you can become more informed and critical consumers of media. Thank you for watching. My name is Joshua Berglan, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.